Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to 6 Feet Unfiltered.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Courtney. And today's been one.
There's something in the air today. It is currently Thursday, April 17th.
So look at your calendars and see what you're doing in 2025, because obviously people will be watching this in 2039.
Yes, hopefully.
See what you did that day.
Truly, I was driving over here and I've never seen, we started this in December, like right around Christmas time, never seen as many cars on the road. It was like crazy traffic. So like 5 ambulances, people tailgating. It was just weird. And then we get here, Courtney's washing machine is leaking. Everything's going awry.
There's water everywhere.
Mercury must be in retrograde or some shit. We're not sure. But we made it and we're here. And we're excited to talk about this episode.
Yes.
So today we're diving into 6 Feet Under Season 2, Episode 2, Out, Brief Candle. This episode opens with a brutal heat stroke death that sets off a chain of reckonings about leadership, grief, visibility, and the ways people get pushed too far. Brenda and Nate attempt to play house with her ex and his new family in tow, while ghosts, literal and emotional, refuse to stay buried. David finds ways to spend time with Keith. Claire finds out Gabe might be more of a mess than she even realized, and Ruth enters her architect of her life era thanks to Robbie's self-help graduation. Oh, and Mitzi, she's back. What a gift and a catch. Stick around as we unpack casket walls, fry sticks, Entenmann's cakes, and Nate's biggest confession yet. Let's get into it.
Okay, so we open the episode of 6 Feet Under with a death that feels especially brutal because of how easily it could have been prevented. At a local high school, the football team is being pushed to the limit under the blazing sun. The coach demands that they run hard despite the extreme heat. And when one player collapses, it's assumed that he's the one in trouble. But when Sam comes to and all eyes are on him, no one notices that his teammate and friend Josh Langmead, was that right? Mm-hmm. Is still lying motionless on the field. By the time anybody realizes what's happened, which we don't even know when that is, it's too late. Josh has died from heat stroke. It's a devastating reminder that sometimes the most dangerous threats aren't the ones that we see coming. They're the ones we overlook. And in true 6 Feet Under fashion, this opening pulls no punches. It calls out the high cost of pushing people past their limits, the failure of leadership, and that's ironic, just looking around the world today in the United States, and the tragic price of being unseen. I'm actually genuinely curious what our takes are on this part. So my first notes were, as soon as I'm watching this first death scene, all I can think about is Nate like running and having his AVM and just like instantly killing him.
I feel like so stupid, but I did not even put together the fact that this guy was like an athlete and running and dropped dead while he was exercising, and Nate was the one who was really connecting with this character. I was just thinking about the fact that he died and he was so young and he wasn't ready to die, but I didn't add on the fact that he was like
my notes,
like what you just said, that he was like exercising.
Yes. That first opening part.
Yeah. Okay.
So good opening death scene.
Yeah, it is interesting. So then we see Brenda and Nate. They're at Brenda's house discussing the fact that they were having Brenda's previously mentioned ex, Trevor, and his wife and kid over for dinner. And Brenda teases Nate about him being jealous, and he jokes around with her. And they seem to be doing better now after Nate's ecstasy trip.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they were like...
the euphoria.
Yeah, and he's like, I love you. And she was laughing for the first time in a long time. And I'm like...
He cracked her.
Yeah, I feel like that honestly they're not out of the woods. Like, I think I know there's still more to come, ups and downs, obviously.
Yes.
But I think that for the time being, that actually really did do them a world of good, him accidentally getting high on ecstasy.
I agree. Maybe we should, I've never done it.
Maybe we should all just start mixing in some ecstasy
smidge.
tabs to our Tylenol bottle.
It's like Russian roulette.
Whenever
who's gonna be happy today? Okay, so this scene was interesting for me. Brenda being so emotionally aware when she says, Nate, I can't remember what Nate said. I thought for sure you were going to put it in there, but he said something because she was obsessing about cleaning or putting things together, making things perfect for Trevor. And he was like, why do you even care that why are you obsessing over this? And she's like, because I have nothing else to obsess about. I love it. It's funny because I was thinking, this is clear. Brenda is feeling better. And then Nate literally verbatim said the words in as I was thinking them in my brain. I voice to texted these notes. So I'm reading hieroglyphics basically. And then Brenda says this, the thing about depression is that if you actually allow yourself to feel it, it gets very boring very fast. So I have a personal story that I have to tell you about that happened recently. My husband and we've been married for almost 10 years, or we've been together for almost 10 years.
So fucked up.
I know, dude. It's gross. and it's rocky, but we're not in like a bad spot either. We're very transparent and open. So if you ever have a venting session, you want to talk to me about it, I'm cool. I'm very, very open about all of the things. And most recently, I was getting stressed out because he works 12-hour shifts overnights and 7 days in a row. So I'm like doing all this stuff. I'm getting stressed out. He's not like helping around the house. He's moping around, blah, 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 blah. And I was cleaning off the table after dinner time. And normally we love to sit in silence on the couch and not talk to each other. It's great.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. 10 years of togetherness. Yeah. And so I was cleaning off the table, getting ready to do that. And he stops and he walks by, and he's also not a good communicator. So I could tell he was trying to say something, but I didn't want to pressure him. So I just kept washing the same spot on the table, like waiting for him to say something. And he just stops and he goes, I think my depression's back. And I was like, I put everything down and I looked up at him and I was like, do you want to go talk about it? So we came over to the couch and we talked about it for like an hour. And at the end of the conversation, and also let me paint you a picture of him. He's not the emotionally touchy-feely. So that was a huge deal for him to even say that out loud. So we sat down and we were talking about it and he goes, I actually feel better now. And I was like, do you want to know why? Because you just validated yourself. Like you now know you're not crazy and you have a reason for all of the things that you were feeling, and it's comforting. You don't feel nuts. You feel validated and seen, even by yourself. The point is, make sure you're validating the feelings that you're feeling. And if you can also manage to mentally muster up the courage to validate your partner, that goes a long way. It's amazing how good it feels to, what? Is somebody looking at us?
No, I've tried to not make noises. I realized I was drinking into the mic.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so then we see Mitzi Dalton Huntley pull up to the Kroner Services International building, which, by the way, they must have really like made some bank on season 1 because they have all this.
I want to see their receipts.
Yeah. Like they just really, I don't know, they have this big building and this big sign, whatever. But Gilardi greets her. She's in her little convertible. And Mitzi just immediately starts bitching at him for not getting the Fishers to concede and fires him actually on the spot. And we also find out here that Mitzi fucked Gilardi. She fires him and he's like, Mitzi, you can't do that. And she's like, just because I fucked you doesn't put us on a first name basis or something.
That is true too.
Yeah. I mean, she is still his boss, but she shouldn't have fucked him if she's his boss.
Yes.
Also.
I definitely threw that in there.
But yeah, poor Matt is like shocked and pissed.
Okay. This seems really out of character for the time frame in the world right now. The woman having the superior hand over the man, and I was kind of digging it.
Yeah.
But we also have to point out the fact that you shouldn't fuck your
subordinate.
Yes. I was gonna say inferiors. I don't think that's appropriate.
That's how is how she sees it though.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wouldn't do, but whatever.
I actually have something similar, a similar note about Mitzi later on. Like she's clearly a cunt, but you gotta give it to her, man. She's confident.
Yeah, I don't hate her for that.
So Nate and David are discussing their upcoming intake for Josh in the kitchen. David announces he's off to Torrance to meet with the Living Splendor sales rep and puts Nate in charge of the intake, albeit condescendingly. And Nate does the intake with Josh's parents, and they're distraught and tell Nate.
That scene was hard to watch.
It was really sad. They're super distraught, and they're telling Nate about all of Josh's accomplishments and how it was his dream to play pro. And I almost didn't catch this moment, but they asked Nate if he played football, and he said, no way, my dad wouldn't let me. He said it was too day. I did play baseball in high school a little bit.
It was too what?
He was about to say my dad said it was
Dangerous.
too dangerous, but then he caught himself, and in the middle he was like, my dad said it was too dangerous. But I did play a little bit of baseball in high school, and they just looked at him like, and it's like, God, Nate, what the fuck, you fucking idiot.
He's also not in his right mind.
No, he's not, and that's very true. He has his own things going on, but it was such another quick little fucking blip that they put in that you would totally miss. I actually did watch this episode twice,
and you didn't see it the first time?
No,
Huh?
no. And
I didn't see it the first time.
And I bet if we went back and watched this a third time, that
you
there
pick
would be
something
more.
else up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you guys pick anything else up in this scene,
Let us
or in
know.
any of them?
Please let us know. And no matter if you watch it in 2025 or 2039.
2039.
So then his parents end up ordering the Titan 4 casket, which we know from, remember,
This one pops up a lot.
2. Yeah, it's like a running thing. Chandler Swanson, I remembered his name this time. He was the one who
couldn't afford it.
Yeah, and that's where we found out about the Titan. But they want that one for him, and they're like, oh, it's just money. It doesn't matter. They just like want to do all of the best things for him. They're so fucking sad. Of course, everybody's so fucking sad whenever anybody dies, but it's just like they're grieving their child. It's so fucking sad. And
I thought about that too. I was like, if Rob and I died, I would tell everybody to do the cheapest fucking thing possible. Just throw me in my oven.
Yeah.
And call it good. If it was my kid, I'd get the Titan 36.
Yeah. Yeah. You can totally see how they're feeling and where their like decision making is coming from.
Which makes me now irritated with this kind of a business because they're literally taking advantage of you.
Yeah. Well, that's Nate's whole fucking struggle, why he didn't want to do it.
If there is a company out there that exists that does this, we need a
all
third.
All of them?
No, wait, hold on. We need a new company, like
Name
a third party
that doesn't
company
take advantage of.
That I'm gonna. So let's say I'm a widow or my kid just died or something. I need to call somebody to come in and take care of all of this stuff for me because I can't.
An advocate.
Yes.
Yeah. People get taken advantage of every day in so many situations. It's really sad, but especially by businesses and corporations.
Yes.
But think about it. Would you rather have it? Ultimately, it comes down to who's the lesser of two evils. And in this situation, it's like, well, would you rather have it go to the Fishers or to fucking Kroner?
Oh, I'd go to the Fishers.
Right. But they're still the lesser of two evils in this scenario because by what we're talking about, they're also taking advantage of them. It's the whole idea itself, yeah. Like not them personally, but
no, Kroner would or Gilardi or Solardi
for them. Apparently, they have like weird people working there. But I also wrote in here that Nate got it super easy with this one because, of course, you're always supposed to upsell and whatever. He didn't even have to fucking say anything. They're just like, yeah, we'll take the Titan 4. But we find out later that it kind of backfires.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
So then Vanessa and Rico are checking out a house for sale, and Rico's cousin is there, Ramon, and he's helping them check it out, and he's like inspecting it. He must be some kind of handyman, I don't know. And Ramon, when Vanessa's out of the room, tells Rico that Rico has been acting like a candy-ass bitch ever since that he got married. And I just put that in there, for one, another thing that I didn't notice on my first watch, and for two, remember that line in the next couple episodes because do you remember Ramon or what happens with him?
No.
Okay, well.
But is he going to be a candy ass bitch?
I wouldn't choose those words, but since he said them, it's important to remember.
Candy ass bitch.
And then he tells them that the house is good and Vanessa and Rico are super excited. They really, really want this house.
They deserve the house.
Vanessa and the kids deserve the
yes.
house. Nate is with Josh's body in the prep room and he uncovers the body bag to Josh crying. And then his phone, he's just crying, like blubbering, and nobody says anything at this point. And then Nate's phone rings and it's the casket company calling to tell them that the Titan is actually no longer in production. And so now he has to solve that problem. So he has to like call this family and tell them, and it just turns into this whole big thing. And the closest thing available is like way more expensive. So he puts Josh away in the cooler or something. But I think
What am I talking about?
When he got off the phone, he was just pissed. He was like,
oh, he said that.
He was on the phone with the person.
Yes.
He
He's
was
talking
just
to the
like,
lady.
well, motherfuck.
He said, son of a motherfuck. And she goes, sir. And I was like, love this side of Nate.
But he is just, he's...
And that wasn't the first time he swore on that conversation either. I was waiting for her to like jump in, but then she didn't. And then she's like, sir.
Mm-hmm. He's spicy.
How dare you?
I love every single one of the Fishers. I think I've said this in a previous episode, but they have this fire that just comes out in different ways. In every single one of them has it, though.
They do.
Yeah.
Actually. David's is kind of harder to...
But think about all his moments. He lets it bottle up, and then he has, like, when he freaked out on Gilardi and threatened him.
Oh, yep, that was one.
At the Vegas trip when he went rogue. And then remember when he bitched out Gilardi, he was like...
Oh, yep.
And then when he came out in front of his congregation, like, he has all these moments where he just... But his are, like, the most monumental, honestly. Nate's are always just, like... He gets pissed off and he was like...
Says something.
You want to fuck with me? Like, fuck you. And Claire is just kind of erratic, but like teenage
She gets that
angst.
from Ruth, too.
And Ruth is just completely random.
Very
it's not
random.
Random in her brain, but to everyone else, it's super random.
Correct.
And it's so interesting. I love them all so fucking much.
Yeah, they're really good at being consistent with that, too.
Yes. So good. So good. So then we see Claire and Parker talking at their lockers about how Parker hates public school and about how a girl that she used to be friends with until she fucked her brother is in France right now. She still goes to the private school. So Claire is meanwhile pissed off because Gabe is supposed to be meeting with them and he's late. So then we see Gabe at like in a different scene trying to talk to Dink, and he's trying to talk him down because he's freaking out about the fact that the cops have the security footage from the convenience store. And then Gabe starts freaking out and pins Dink against the fence, and Claire calls him and tells him that they're waiting and hangs up on him, and Parker tells her not to pussy whip him. And then we see Andy walking up to Parker and Claire in the hallway at school looking a little peaked, and they're looking at him and they're like, what squirrel nut?
He was acting very bizarre.
And he said,
your
soul is on fire. And Parker goes, I know. Which was
I gotta remember that line.
That's perfect, Parker. That's a perfect depiction of like why I love her character. So dry. And that made me laugh. But anyway, he's like reaching toward them and Claire's like, what the fuck? You're not on the list of people who get to touch my tits. And then he reaches towards them again and has like a fucking drug-induced psychotic episode and starts screaming in pain and tearing at his clothes. And Claire and Parker are freaking out. There's like, this is so Parker's like, this is so fucked up.
I think she just like, she didn't do anything.
She was, but Claire was like, I don't know what to do right now. Then Gabe comes running up and tells Claire to go get the nurse and then threatens Andy to stop freaking out or he'll kick his ass.
I was like,
So
are you...
stupid.
I feel like that's a brother and sister moment. Like, you punch your brother or sister or something and they're like, start crying. And you're just like, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, hey.
But in this case, it was really... It was
was
worse
him,
than
too, that hurt him, too.
Yeah.
It really was like a
This
brother
is
and
all
sister.
Gabe's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I loved that scene. I loved how shocking it was. It was just like, oh, shit.
Ugh.
And I loved Parker and I loved Claire, everything.
I hate that this is happening in a high school, though.
Oh my God, think about all the shit that happened in our high school.
Did we ever do drugs like that?
Not us doing, but I know people. Oh my God, I could name like 8 million fucking crazy things that happened in the walls of our high school.
We had a small high school, by the way, so everybody knew everybody. People knew when you took a shit in the middle of...
But not as small as, not like we weren't as small as Chisholm.
True that.
But it was also, we had a weird, our high school is historic as fuck. And it really is.
I know.
It's crazy. People don't, we didn't even understand when we went to high school.
No, people would come there and be like, oh, this is so cool.
People
I'm
go
like,
on
really?
tours at our high school to see it because it's like a literal historical monument. It was built so we're from Hibbing, which was a mining town, and they had all this mining money, and it was built in 1920. It's literally, they call it
is pretty.
The Castle of the North or something. And the auditorium is built, I always forget what the auditorium in New York is called that they modeled it after, but it has fucking chandeliers. Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. But anyway, we had a weird high school experience. So our school was like a castle, but we graduated with like 175 people, but we also, they crammed 7th through 12th grade into that building.
Stupid, by the way.
So fucked up. They should not have 7th through 12th grade in the same building. And
we were the first class to be the 7th graders.
Yes, we were.
We were the guinea pigs. That's why we're so fucked up.
And we're perfect fucking examples of why you should not put 7th graders in the same building as 12th graders, because we probably wouldn't have gotten into half the shit that we got into if we were.
But we were still smart. Like, we didn't do the really bad stuff.
We never did math.
Or heroin.
No. What's the really bad stuff?
That.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Everything else, though.
Okay, I never did. I just drank a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, I never did really anything too crazy, but...
I think you were more daring than me. I was too afraid. I needed to be in control. I'm a control freak.
Yeah, but I'm thinking even just more in terms of, like, we shouldn't have been hanging out with people that old and whatever.
No, dude. I was hanging out. I was like 15 dating a bald guy.
Yeah, though, that's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck? And do you remember who was the math teacher? Didn't she get pissed that you and Logan were dating? Didn't she, like... Anyway,
yeah,
they
weird.
were probably right. But
I like to make my own mistakes, though.
Okay.
That was enough. Anywho.
Moving on. David and Nate are bitching at each other about the casket situation, kind of blaming each other. Nate's blaming David for not taking that page out of the catalog. David's blaming Nate because he didn't remember that he told him that the Titan was being discontinued, blah, blah, blah.
Why wouldn't you put an X on it?
David said it was an honest mistake. I don't know.
Okay.
But Rico walks in and asks them for a loan for $11,000 for the house that they want to buy tomorrow. And he says that he'll pay them back with 7% interest over 18 months. And David says that they'll let him know by tomorrow. That's a really good deal, by the way, for back then with an employer. Like, Rico offered... Rico was being really generous, I think. Like, I wouldn't have asked them for interest. I would have said, can I just borrow? Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I was just, next words that were about to come out of my mouth was Rico is such a little shit, honestly.
I did think that, though, as I was watching it. But that is interesting. As you're watching it, you feel that way. But when you actually pull back the words and if you peel it back to the foundation.
It all comes down to, like, everyone's individual principles and how they feel, because it's kind of like gets to not mixing business with pleasure, but crossing lines there. David says he'll let him know by tomorrow. Then Rico is such a little shit. And then he turns to Nate and says, or David turns to Nate and says, see, I am understanding, which was kind of funny. But okay, we'll come back to that because we talk about the loan further. So we'll unpack it more when we go back to it. But, okay, Ruth and Robbie are at work together, and Ruth compliments Robbie on his flower arrangement at work, and Robbie throws a dig at her about, like, didn't you learn about this at Daffodil University? But then he feels bad, and he gives his arrangement to her, and he says, it's a gift from my heart, seriously. And Ruth is so happy and says, thank you so much, Robbie. But then he says, okay, Ruth, this is going to be hard for me to say, but I forgive you. And she's like, forgive me for what? And he says, you destroyed the natural order of the universe, Cupcake. Everything was perfectly quiet and boring around here before you came. And now Nikolai's all aflutter, wanting to make improvements. I'm expected to work. For his own carnal reasons, he favors you over me, and for that, I forgive you. And Ruth says that she resents that and she doesn't need his forgiveness and starts to walk away. And Robbie says, well, this is not how it's supposed to go, and tells her that he's graduating from the plan tomorrow and he would really like for her to be his witness. She asks, what is the plan? And he explains that it's a multidiscipline course that allows you to think way beyond yourself and rebuild your life from the ground floor, plank by plank. It teaches you how to get what you want out of life. And he tells her it would really mean a lot to him and kind of walks away I took it as like him just being like, okay, you think about it, basically.
I took it as I'll pick you up at 7.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This was interesting because their characters are actually so similar in their ways of being transparent. Have you noticed that?
No, but that's true.
Like
They really both just, when they have something that they need to get off their chest, they just can't function until they get it off. Like, they just let it out.
Yep. And sometimes it comes across weird or aggressive.
Okay, I spent $25,000. You
Yes.
got it out of me.
Nobody even asked her.
Yeah. And that's like Robbie, like, okay.
All right, I was
forgive
jacking
you.
off. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even in this scenario right here, Ruth says, I don't need your forgiveness. And like walks away. They're both like that, but they're so different at the same time. It's so interesting that they would make good friends.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's so true. So then Nate and David are checking out a casket wall, and David gets a hard-on over it, basically.
A literal hard-on.
Nate is iffy about it. He doesn't think that they should do it, and he explains that the money that Ruth gave them is almost gone. The wall costs $20,000, and Nate eventually reluctantly agrees to purchase it. He's like, you really like it? And David goes, who wouldn't? I said, David is kind of weird for this because, like, why?
It was freaky.
So
I saw Dexter right there, like, staring at his next victim.
He was like a little kid. Nate even said that in the next scene.
Yeah, he did say that.
David was like, we were opening presents on Christmas when we were kids or something. Okay, so then Nate and Brenda are talking in Brenda's kitchen, and Brenda's preparing the meal for the next day when they're going to have Trevor and his family over. And Nate mentions that she never cooks, so she's obviously going above and beyond to impress them. And I think that she's doing this because she doesn't want them to think that they're better than her for not having a family and stuff. And I think that Nate knows that's why she's doing this, which is why he's going along with it so well. And it's kind of cute and sweet, actually, that they're supporting he's supporting her in that way.
Instead of putting her down like some others
or
would.
being jealous. And Nate, he's like hugging Brenda from behind as she's preparing dinner. And then he sees Josh's ghost standing in her living room, just staring at him.
And this is when this thought popped into my head. Do we actually know what Joshua died of? Because when we first see him crying under the sheets in the beginning of the episode, and Nate's like afraid to open the sheet of the dead body, even though he knows that it's probably just this thing in his imagination. I was feeling like Nate was looking at a possible outcome of his AVM, and now he sees Joshua again, so I'm thinking even more about it.
Yeah, I think that was intended. Like, what you got out of that was intended, but I don't think he died of AVM. I think he technically died, like, I think David said at the beginning.
They did say heat stroke?
Heat stroke, yeah. But Nate is still thinking what you're thinking he's thinking, regardless.
Yeah.
Because you could drop dead from AVM just as well as you could drop dead from a heat stroke.
And maybe that's the correlation then.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same concept.
And it being a young, healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Mitzi walks in to the Fishers, and it's currently under construction as they're installing the casket wall. And this feels over the top, to be honest, in terms of prep. Like, they had the whole fucking inside of the Fishers, like, all draped up with plastic and stuff just for one casket wall. I was like, okay, whatever. Anyway, David comes down, and Mitzi introduces herself, and David is confused, and Mitzi cheekily explains who she is. I'm Southwest Regional Director for Kroner Services International. Obviously, David is immediately annoyed, but Mitzi asks if he and Nate would share a cup of coffee with her. So David goes to get Nate, and Nate is a huge ass to her immediately. And David is being a little bit more polite. And Mitzi
He's like being weirdly polite.
Yeah, he was. He was just being...
I think because he just had a boner from the wall. So he's like in his euphoric, like...
I think it's just his default is to just be hospitable and professional.
Okay.
So that's like what he defaults to.
Sure, it's kind of gross.
But I don't know. They play well off. Like, they're learning to play well off of each other.
Yeah.
I think David and Nate are. But anyway, he goes to get Nate, and then Mitzi tells Nate that she fired Gilardi. And David comes in with the coffee. Mitzi says, "You didn't put rat poison in here, did you?" And Nate goes, "Drink it and find out." So she plays a really good boss bitch. She's a cunt, but she is damn confident. And I feel like she deserves a moment of appreciation.
Who, Mitzi or the actress? Or both?
Mitzi, because she's a bitch. I don't like anything she stands for. I disagree with
Correct.
her 100%. But there's something to
She's
be
playing the
said.
game well.
Yeah, there's something to be said
as a
for
woman,
not towing the patriarchal line, like motherfucking Dawn says later in the episode. And damn, that's good.
Ooh.
They have a character in here that we are intended to hate, but she also is she's kind of like gives the middle finger to the patriarchy by acting the way she does, which I kind of fucking love.
Right, and it would trigger somebody who's intimidated by it.
Yeah.
Or
like any man, whether they want to admit it or not.
I could see Rob watching that and be like, "Oh, her voice is it's too high pitched or some shit or whatever they say."
Fuck her voice. I don't give a shit.
She needs to talk in a lower voice if she wants people to.
I'm not rooting for her. I don't like her, but
we're slowly like giving her a side like nux.
Yeah, exactly.
I see you, girl.
So Nate just goes off on her, tells her to take her gesture of good faith and shove it up her ass, and she tells them that their coffee sucks and leaves.
Which is such a stupid fucking thing to say, though.
It wasn't. She could have come up with a better insult.
Yeah.
Anyway, Claire and Nate are in the casket room looking at the new casket wall, and they're joking, and Claire jokes that he's turning into David, and they laugh together, which was cute. So he must have said that.
Yeah, Nate said, "Pretty bitchin', huh?" And I was like, oh my God, this is the 2000s.
That's so cute. And that's such a Nate thing to say, too. So then they're like joking about the casket wall, and Rico walks up to Nate to tell him that Josh is ready and asks Nate if they had a chance to think about the loan. So Nate takes him into the office, and we quickly see Claire ask, after Nate walks away with Rico, she asks the construction guy if the casket's open, if she can hide things in there. Which was so funny. Another thing I didn't notice in my first watch. I didn't pick that up
either.
She was like, wait, did these things really open? Can I like hide things in here? And then Nate tells Rico to close the door and tells him he can't give them the loan. Or he can't give Rico the loan. They can't give Rico the loan. So Rico asks how much the casket wall costs them. And Nate tells him that their first priority is the business. Then Rico asks if they decided to buy it before or after that they spoke about the loan. And then he starts bitching at him for not making him a partner, blah, blah, blah. And Nate cuts him off and freaks out and says, fuck, Rico, we're your employer, not a goddamn savings and loan. But then he softens and he apologizes again and tells him that if it were his money, that he'd give him all of it. And Rico is guilt tripping him. And he's like, yeah, I'll be sure to tell my kids that they have to play in a parking lot next to a dumpster or something. So I kind of feel bad like for Rico's kids and for Vanessa, but fuck Rico. Like, honestly, they aren't your bank.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've never had that kind of money. I've never had enough money for someone to come and ask me for money. So I don't know what that's like.
And offer interest. Enough that they'd have to offer interest.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've asked you for $5 before.
Right. But I don't, maybe I would feel differently, because I think if I did, when I truly put myself in that position and I'm like, well, if I actually literally had that cash somewhere, then I might, like, I don't know. Do you feel like it's valid for him, or like, okay for him to be asking him?
Yes, I do think that was an okay thing to ask. He didn't ask for the money outright. He didn't ask for a bonus.
Do you also feel like he should be okay with the fact that they said no, or do you think it's fucked up that they said no?
I think he needs to be okay with the fact that they said no. I think that it wasn't any of Rico's business whether or not the timing of the purchase of the thing. I didn't like that. That sounded, is it manipulative? Is that the word I'm looking?
Rico is so manipulative.
Yes, and it was screaming manipulative. But if he would have stopped at the initial question of yes or no, instead of peeling back like, more of it, like, so let me see the books and whatever, basically, I don't know. Yeah, it was super fucking weird.
I agree. I don't like that he's guilt tripping.
You know what this was reminding me of? So stupid.
What?
We have a friend that used to...
You and I, or you and Rob?
You and I, from high school. And we she used to want to hang out with me sometimes and I didn't want to. So I would say that my mom said no. She would like say, can I ask your mom? Let me ask her or something like that. And it's like, that's the kind of vibes I was getting from Rico. Like, no, you cannot. Just take no for an answer.
Yeah. Like you don't have control over me.
Yeah.
You don't own me. You don't have, I have autonomy over my fucking life.
Yeah.
You want to know a funny story about that same friend that I just thought of that actually happened before you and I were friends?
Yeah.
I was friends with her, but not you yet. It was in 7th grade. We were all in this toxic friend group, but I remember in 7th grade was when I started experimenting with makeup. Like I did a little in 6th grade, but really more so like actually dabbling in it in 7th grade. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I had like that dream matte mousse.
Yes. I used to use the same thing with the Gen Zs make fun of us.
Oh,
no, they make fun of us.
Okay, well, I used it in 7th grade. And it was just like a little like freaking you put shit on your face. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was like my little routine, and I've always had my routines. And I remember that was one thing they always ridiculed me and criticized me on, was having a routine where like I would fucking shower every day and put deodorant on and do it. Did
you brush your teeth every day?
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay, you're being sarcastic.
Yes.
Right? But that's like how they would act.
Yes. Yeah.
And they would literally like talk shit about me for just doing these. Anyway, so
jealousy.
And that was that. Yes. But that was like those were my targets, and everyone had their targets that she would target them. You know what I mean? But I remember saying to me one time when I like put on my little Dream Matte Mousse and my little eyeliner on my under eyelid for 7th grade school. And
after lighting it on fire so it would be a little liquidy.
Yeah. And saying to me like, Chloe, I dare you to go to school one day without makeup on. I was just like, no, why would I do, like, I like doing this for me. Why would I do that for you? Like, what is the point? I don't remember exactly how I said it, but I just remember calling her out and being like, why would I not wear makeup to make you happy?
Yes.
What is the reason?
Because that's what she was saying it for.
Yeah, it was just bizarre. It's like,
7th grade sucks.
It was so bad. It was so bad. But I just remember, and then I'm pretty sure that was one of the catalysts for me deciding in my brain that I wasn't going to be friends with them anymore. And then,
good for you. I think that's a hard thing to there's so much going on.
What is happening? But it's just like, no, you don't own me. You don't control me. Like, I feel so indignant about that stance. So I'm kind of on the Fisher's side with us.
No, I am too. I can totally see where they're both coming from. It's interesting because I can see where they're both coming from. They are an employer, and most employers can't just hand out that kind of loan. But I feel like Rico's done so much for them. I can see where he's feeling a little shit on, because an employer won't just like do that, right? They can't do that for everybody.
Well, right. But in this scenario,
they
he's
probably
their only
could.
Employer.
Correct. So it was like, I can see where Rico thought he might be able to get it, and he's not he's not asking for a bonus.
I'm not going to like shade him for shooting his shot. Shoot your shot, but you have to accept
to get too far
the outcome.
He shot the shot with the expectation that he was going to get, that he was entitled to this loan, and that is what's rubbing the wrong. Yes. And he doesn't know, because he's not a partner, so he doesn't know what the books look like. He doesn't know the financial side, and they literally have to make sure the business stays afloat. So like, or you ain't getting another. You get the loan, and that's it.
Yeah, bye. We don't exist, and David says that later. So it's like, I don't know. I get it. This watch through for me, I'm even more. Well, it's probably because I know what's coming in later seasons, but I'm like, fuck you, Rico, a lot more than I was before. So
I can't remember when I started to dislike Rico the first time.
I can probably tell you when, but I won't ruin it.
Oh, I think I know, actually. The big obvious one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Nate is in the prep room, and Josh's ghost is there and tells Nate that he's scared and he's crying. And Nate tells him that it's not his problem. And he's like, what? Everybody dies. What makes you so fucking special? So I think this is the first time that we actually see one of the Fishers talking to a ghost, and they show us the real perspective of there not actually being anyone there, but Nate's still like actively yelling at him, because the camera pulls back and you see Nate yelling at like
nothing,
an empty room. I know there's been scenes where like Ruth walked in on David when he was talking to Paco and stuff, but this was just different. It was like there was something extra eerie about the camera like pulling back and seeing the empty room and Nate like screaming into the void. It was just
just Nate. And it was clearly him fighting with himself, trying to come to terms with the idea that he might lose his life early. Not as early as Josh, but before he thought. And I think we see that a couple more times throughout
it's like the
episode too.
The stages of grief.
Yes. And I wonder if that's what's taking him so long to tell people is like he needs to get through the grief. At least, that part.
What are the stages? I don't know what this is. I knew at one point.
Is there 7?
I think so.
Well, denial.
The last one's acceptance.
There's bargaining.
Yep.
Anger.
Yeah. Oh, and he's definitely been doing that one. Agreement.
There's another one that's like close to being. I don't know. I'll have to look those up. I wonder which.
Probably like
which phase I'm in.
For what?
All of them.
We're in all the phases
it's like
all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Ruth is at this thing for Robbie, and a woman approaches her and explains that she's there for her daughter, and her daughter's graduating too, and she invites Ruth to sit with her. So we see a lady speaking on stage about drafting a blueprint for your life and constructing a life that has meaning. You are the architect of your life. It's like a Tony Robbins vibes thing.
I also, before you get too far into this, want to point out that Ruth doesn't know what they're doing there, and neither does this daughter's mom.
No, nobody knows like what's going on. They don't know what the plan is
or what they're graduating from.
No,
could have been
like,
AA.
Yeah, it's like weird. But weren't you into Tony Robbins?
I still am. I think. Well, I go back and forth on him. Sometimes I feel like he's yelling at me, and I don't like it.
I don't even really know what his vibe is. I've never gotten into him, so I'm not sure.
I think he's angry. I think he's always in the anger, grief mode.
But it's like, he's like a motivational speaker, right?
Yeah.
So, and he like builds people up like this, but I also get like, I don't know, MLM, like schemy vibes a little. Like, I don't trust him fully. I don't trust anything like this, but.
Okay, that is funny because as I'm watching this, I was like, I want to do one of these.
I think there's validity to that because there's something about it that is appealing to me as well.
Yeah, I loved the celebration and the coming on stage and like
the structure of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love structure.
Now I want to go look at Tony Robbins. His wife does shit now too.
Oh, I don't even know. I don't know anything about him or anything. Okay,
I'll give you the rundown later.
Dude, structure and organization and planning and having a plan, that gives me such a boner. Like,
yes,
I love that.
And then cheering on all these other people and clapping.
I do, but it's like someone's making money off of this.
Yes, I thought about that too.
And that's all they care about.
So
that
basically
means that they're going to tell me whatever they need to tell me in order to make money. So that means I don't trust you. I don't fucking trust anybody.
They probably started with a small group of people. And it had a great outcome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then those people started to tell more people. And then next thing you know, they're recruiting people to come to the thing. Mm-hmm. So I can see how you think that would be kind of MLM-y. But I don't.
Or not even, because it could have, a lot of these things like this start with like a fucking millionaire who has like a business idea. And it's like, let's see how much more money we can
make off of it.
Pull off of this million. Let's turn this million into $1 billion.
Okay, Tony Robbins is not an MLM though.
Okay,
I think you're thinking of something like Amway.
There's that too, but I don't know.
Because I've gone to those too.
It's giving cult.
Yes,
like which there's aspects of cults that like are kind of appealing to me. I'm not gonna lie, but that's why they exist, and that's how people get into bad ones. So you always have to question
or get too far into them.
You can't
you have to always question. You're absolutely right. That is actually very good advice. Critical thinking skills are important,
and so once you fucking scarce.
Once you start, yes, I can't even. Okay, quick tangent on that because I feel like this is really important, especially in this world right now. I question everything. So I am very liberal. I'm a huge feminist. I am radically on that side. I just went down a rabbit hole of trying to understand if I was the crazy one and like, am I in a cult? Because I'm so confused on everything that's happening in this world right now.
That's how you know you're not.
That is what I became to understand. But it was important. And I also had to take a step back and be like, okay, dude, I'm proud of you for just like stepping out and trying to ask those questions though, because it
Yes.
validated the fact that I was not in a cult.
That's so important to always do in every situation.
Everything in your life.
Even in every relationship you have.
Relationship, parenting, I find myself doing that a lot. Once I start to do things mindlessly, like I don't even have an example, but when you're doing something that you don't have to think about, it's nice because you don't have to think about it. But then once you realize that you're doing something that you don't have to think about, you should take a step back and think about it. And think about, why am I still doing this?
Yeah.
Is it benefiting me? Like,
one of the biggest fucking indicators of having a low IQ is refusing to change your mind.
To challenge. Yes.
Like,
because it's scary.
Yeah, you have to always be open, and you fucking take information and analyze it and process it. And sometimes you come out with new fucking conclusions. That's how people grow and change and develop. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. You're certainly not the same person you were 10 years ago. That's what we talk about all the time. Think about how many people there are that we know who are the exact same person that they were 10 years ago.
I actually know a few.
We know a lot.
Yeah.
And they all live 3 hours up north.
He was bald at 18. Dating a 15-year-old.
Anyway.
That's our tangent.
Not sure how we feel about the plan yet, but Ruth is witnessing all of this.
We know Ruth's feeling it.
She's getting into it. And then all of the graduates are coming up and speaking into the mic about their emotional achievements that they have gotten with this plan.
Which was beautiful.
It was. And Robbie says, I am not a salvage job. I am not a teardown. I am not junk. It's taken me many years to say that and to believe it. There are days that I slip and I treat people like shit, like I treated myself for the last 3 years. But damn it, I swear I'm going to win this. I'm going to build the life that I always wanted to live. Ruth is smiling at him from the crowd and cheering him on. And then we see a few more graduates speak and learn more about the type of person that this program appeals to. And Ruth is enamored with this woman who's speaking, and she's describing that she's a 41-year-old woman, but she feels like she's 80. And she says, but I have value. I'm still here. And as long as I believe in myself and speak fiercely from the I, then there's still hope. There's not a mortgage on my life. I own it. Thank you, Mom. And it turns out that it was Ruth's new friend's daughter that was up there speaking. But I loved how she said this was, regardless of if the plan is a crock of shit or not, I loved how she said, there's not a mortgage on my life. I own it.
That was beautiful.
Ooh, I just got chills. Like, that's a good line.
I also need to pay my mortgage.
Same. That's a good thought though. That's a good
I know. Mantra. That's like a tattoo. I need to put it somewhere. We'll
somewhere.
We got to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good one. So then Keith and David are fucking playing racquetball.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
What happened to them not hanging out alone?
I put that in there.
Yeah, right after. But we also learn here that they never actually used to play racquetball, but now they are because David wants to learn how. But I bet that is how, like, this is David's way of trying to find a way to see Keith without Eddie.
I was curious about that.
Like, ooh, how can I scheme to, like, get him alone? Because, I don't know, it's weird. I feel like he knows that Keith will give in to him if he frames it in a way that will, like...
Sneaky?
Like, oh, if you do this, you're supporting me, you know? So he's like, oh, I really want to learn how to play racquetball. I bet he framed it in a way of, like... Because he said something like, yeah, I really want to try to learn how to play racquetball. And Keith said something that kind of made it seem like he wasn't really buying it, but it was like, okay, whatever, we're playing.
Yeah, Keith made a point to say... You know, in all those years we were telling people we're playing racquetball. Here we are actually playing racquetball. And it was irritating me. I was very pissed because we just spent the last episode, I think, talking him up so much about his boundaries.
Yeah.
It just goes to show, sorry, men, y'all suck. Like, come on now. Even the good one.
It's so hard, though, because it's like we know that Keith and David are, like, meant to be.
Yeah, they are soulmates. But I also really like Eddie, and I was so proud of Keith for setting those boundaries.
Yeah. But you know what? We also don't. Eddie is still a minor character. we don't know what's going on with them. Maybe things have gone on behind the scenes that have...
True. And Keith doesn't seem like the type of guy. Keith's not like Courtney. Keith's not going to air his dirty laundry, him and Eddie's relationship. And I'm like, I got receipts, bro. So he's definitely...
And he said Eddie's on call, but we don't know.
Which that line was like gross to me too. I don't know. Ugh, I don't know.
Like, so David's your backup, or I don't know. It was kind of weird.
And yes, it seemed like it was sneaky. Like he was intentionally being sneaky.
Yeah. So then Keith ends up asking David if he wants to drop by his niece's birthday later because Eddie is on call. So Keith says that he has a couple of errands to run and he'll call him later. And David says that he doesn't have anything to do and he'll just take along if that's okay. And Keith just smiles. And it was a really cute smile.
We totally jumped from...
Yeah, we switched up. Which...
I don't hate, but...
No, I'm not mad about it, but it also does invalidate our entire monologue about Keith in our last episode, but we're human.
It's also really good that we're doing these episode by episode.
Yeah.
Because now I definitely won't ever watch the next one until we do this.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to see how the journey they take you on.
The reactions.
So then we're back at the high school and Parker runs up to Claire and says, "Oh my God, did you hear Andy was doing fry?" And apparently fry is a doobie dipped in embalming fluid. And Parker tells Claire that if she ever wanted to make a quick buck, she could sell it. And Claire puts the pieces together that Gabe stole the embalming fluid from her basement. She says, "Oh my God, that fucking asshole." But Parker thinks that she's talking about Andy. She's like, "I know, right?" Like something about he's going to be in rehab for like a week or something.
How do they even... That reminded me of the Tide Pods. Do you remember when kids were like eating Tide Pods?
Yeah.
I don't even know if that was real. It's like probably... It probably
People
was
died from it, I think. So then Brenda and Nate are at Brenda's getting ready for Trevor to get there, and Nate's being very supportive and Brenda's being very fancy. And yeah, he said something about
a food stylist in Seattle.
Yeah, they were so Brenda was like making all this fancy food, and Nate's like,
he dated one.
They used to put, or they put hairspray on foods for food photography or something, and she's like, really? And he's like, yeah, I used to go out with a food stylist back in Seattle. And
is that who I think it is?
Oh my gosh, is it?
I didn't look it up because I wanted to be surprised.
Dude, maybe. Oh my God, I love that Easter egg if that is who we're thinking of. And I think you might be right because she moves to LA to be a chef for someone. So I think you're right. Oh my God, good pull. I love that. Was good. I love that. Ooh.
I was excited when I was typing that. I had to put the most perfect emojis. But who knows?
I was wondering why you put that in there. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. We're talking about Lisa, by the way. And if you don't know who Lisa is, you will soon find out. And if you do know who Lisa is, we're talking about Lisa. Oh my God.
So if you're watching and know, well, they probably know. Drop us comments. Who knows?
Oh my God, oh my God, I love that. Okay, so Trevor arrives. Brenda answers the door, and their kid comes storming in. His name is Will.
Like a bat out of hell.
Literally. And they do their introductions, and Brenda offers them wine. And Brenda looks over she's like pouring the wine, and there's a moment where she kind of looks over at their family, like kind of she has this longing expression on her face. And then we see Brenda and Trevor's wife, her name is Dawn, in the kitchen talking about her press tour for her new book. So Dawn is like this famous author, and she's talking about her press tour for her book, and she says that she did she's like, I feel like such a sellout. I actually did politically incorrect last night, which apparently, have you ever heard of politically incorrect?
Politically incorrect? The book?
No, it's like so this is what it is, because I hadn't heard of it, but I was like, what is she talking about?
Kathy Bates directed this one.
Oh, interesting.
I knew I saw that on there.
Okay, interesting. So anyway.
Politically incorrect.
Politically incorrect. I looked it up, and it's a late night talk show that was hosted by comedian Bill Maher that aired from 1993 to 2002. And it was first on Comedy Central and later on ABC. And it's known for its provocative and unfiltered discussions. And the show featured a rotating panel of guests from politics, entertainment, and media who debated current events with humor and blunt honesty. So it was controversial throughout its run, especially after Maher's post 9/11 comments criticizing U.S. military tactics, which led to advertiser backlash and the show's cancellation. Despite its end, the show influenced political talk formats and paved the way for Maher's later series. So Real Time with Bill Maher was what his later series was. Anyway, she said that this is crazy. She said that she was on this talk show with, the night before they went to dinner, with Kobe Bryant.
Okay, he's dead.
Who died in 2020? It was January 2020.
Is the airplane?
In a helicopter crash.
Okay.
But this was in 2002. So and this show's all about death, which is fucked up. So this Dawn is saying, I was on this show, Politically Incorrect, last night. And so she was one of the guests, and the other guests were Kobe Bryant and that emaciated chick from The Practice, who the person who plays that emaciated chick from The Practice is, I forgot her name, but she's in Twin Peaks. And I also have to say, I was wrong about the guy who I said, I actually cut that part out of our episode because I was like, oh, that's not even right what I was saying. That wasn't correct. But this is correct. This woman that she's referencing who was in The Practice was actually also in Twin Peaks. So last episode we recorded, I had thought that the man who played Death was a character in Twin Peaks, but he actually wasn't. But Gary Hirschberger is. He plays a guy in Twin Peaks, and he's Gilardi. So there's weird crossovers with Twin Peaks and 6 Feet Under, and it's like similar vibes. I don't know. Anyway, so Kobe Bryant, the emaciated chick from Twin Peaks, from The Practice, and some 12-year-old rap singer that she'd never even heard of. So Brenda compliments her on her book, and the chick tells her that she read Charlotte Light and Dark. And she said, I had this idiot professor that insisted it was the perfect profile of a classic borderline personality. And there was like this awkward pause, and she's like, you've heard that before, right? And Brenda's like, actually, I went to the library and looked that up and started acting like that on purpose just to mess with them. And
genius.
Yes. So then the lady says, personally, well, she was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, that's so impressive. And then she's like, personally, I think it's a crock of shit. Do you ever notice how the majority of borderlines are women? I see it as just a misogynistic attempt to pathologize women who refuse to toe the patriarchal line, like Mitzi. Mm-hmm. I wonder what Brenda is thinking here, and I feel like she agrees with Dawn, but she doesn't like that she agrees with Dawn.
I love Dawn.
Yeah, but
she doesn't want to because it's Trevor's wife.
Yeah, like, I don't know. But then later on, she does say that she really liked her.
Yes.
But I think that she was just maybe not expecting her to be
so perfect.
To be like her, you know, like feminist.
Yeah.
Which I loved that.
And the borderline personality disorder.
That was deep.
It was. And it is so true. Women, we don't get diagnosed for a lot of stuff. And you know what else?
But mental health issues, you slide them up.
Right. And on that same topic, too, I will say for men, eating disorders, they're also, so it's like the more feminine, and what makes that feminine? Oh my God, I just had so many things in my head. What makes that a feminine disorder, an eating disorder? Men aren't getting their diagnoses. And
But there are so many men who have eating disorders.
Yes. It's actually quite astounding, and it just goes undetected in so much. So, like, who are these people that are diagnosing this shit with all of this?
Men.
Fuck it. They're like all of these, like, it's like the cops that are looking for the bad guy, but they just want to fit their own story. Mm-hmm. Like, they just want their story to be confirmed. Mm-hmm. So what I decided you are is what you are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That is, I mean, we could have a whole fucking, like, multi-seasoned podcast just on that topic. Like, but
should we see if Dawn's available?
I did. Yeah, she had valid points, good lines. We got to stand for Dawn.
And I put, bro, you better put Trevor's wife on the date mate cremate because homegirl is speaking to my soul right now.
Yes, and I was glad you did that actually, because I remember when I was going
forgot
back
to do it the last
and
time.
plugging your notes in, I was thinking, I'm like, all right, I got to be reminded who is in this episode, who can we do for that? And then you had that. I'm like, oh my God, okay, perfect. But anyway, then we see Nate and Trevor talking, like they're out on the porch talking about climbing and bouldering and stuff like that.
What's bouldering?
It's like
climbing
rock climbing type shit, but
with a boulder.
No.
Is it like lifting?
No. I don't really know how. I honestly don't even know how to describe what it is. It's
in between boulders.
I think it's climbing without a harness, but you do it at usually you do it at like
lower
a
lakes.
gym. It's like my sister actually broke her leg bouldering last year, and her bone was sticking through her leg. She probably
Please don't put up a picture.
That. Anyway. So they're talking about that shit, and then Trevor's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not that adventurous anymore. And he looks over at Will. He's like, I have to think about more than just myself now. And then he asks about Brenda, and Nate says, oh, she's doing great. And Trevor says, she's so fucking smart, and she used to run circles around me. Everyone expected such great things from her.
I hated that line.
And looks over at her. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
What the actual fuck? What was that supposed to mean? That pissed me off. I hate him immediately. But,
he rubbed me the wrong way a few times.
Like, why would you say everyone expected such great things from her? Why? What the fuck? Anyway, then
don't have expectations basically on anybody because it's not your fucking
that's like
deal.
Him saying like, wow, she's got
a shitty life.
Yeah,
right to her partner.
Yeah, like what a dumb fuck. And he's wrong.
Yes, very much.
But then he asks about how her brother is, and Nate tells him that he's in the hospital. Awkward.
Okay, I put right here, I wonder why Trevor's face was like that when Nate said that about Billy. Well, what were you thinking?
Do you remember Billy has mentioned Trevor before?
Yes.
When he was about to murder Nate, he was like, said something like, you're just like Trevor, he thought he owned her or whatever. So clearly Billy had beef with Trevor just like he had beef with Nate, and I'm sure he's just like he's had beef with any boyfriend. So do you think that they had a
similar situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that.
So they just trauma bonded?
Kind of.
Okay.
Well, I feel like Trevor gave him that look when Nate said that Billy was in the hospital. I think the look was like, man, I'm not surprised. And I think he was also thinking like, yeah, I
wonder what happened.
I think Trevor, and I hate that I think that he was thinking this, but I think he was thinking like, yeah, good thing I got out of that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, especially in the same breath. I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Like, what a shit show. Because Billy is a shit show. But it just sucks that it's all coming together in this way to kind of validate Trevor, which he should not be validated because his way of thinking is fucked. And it's kind of fucked that Dawn, this hot-ass feminist bitch, is with some twat like this who's talking about Brenda in this way.
Okay, hold on a second.
Thinking about her in this way.
I have a confession.
Okay.
I feel like the thoughts and the things that Trevor's been saying, I've had those thoughts before about people.
Like what?
Like, we were just talking shit about him saying...
Like, I'm glad I got out of that?
The one before that, how he was like, oh, they just expected so much of her.
Oh, yeah.
I have been actually on both ends. I've had people say that about me because I'm not doing what they expected me to do or whatever. But I know I've had those thoughts about people before. Mm-hmm. And I thought that, like, I was saying it as like I was superior to them. And now I'm like, what the fuck? Shame on me. Why would you
say it out loud to their partner?
No, I didn't. And I actually probably never.
That's a big difference.
I probably never even actually said it out loud. It was probably just an intrusive thought.
And I think everyone has thoughts.
No, I know. But I think, yeah, you're right. I don't know.
But it's like, I get what you're saying too.
Yeah.
And I think that it's good to recognize that. But also, it's not abnormal to
have intrusive thoughts.
And I don't even know if I would say that was intrusive, because like if you expect somebody to do one thing and they don't do that, they do something else, you're gonna have thoughts about it. So I don't even think it's.
But I do think that my thought at the time was
like you're superior.
Yes, I think I was thinking I was better than them, and you know what? It even felt good for me to think that at the time. Like it made me feel better.
Well, look at where,
which is so.
The fact that you're saying that right now, like, look at where that's coming from. Like, for one.
I know.
you're
I'm thinking.
recognizing it.
Yes, I'm feeling like that was just like what we just went and said. It was therapeutic in my brain for some weird shit.
It's like you can't like judge or put yourself. You never know what anybody's going through or what their experiences have been. And yeah, Trevor's just like kind of a shit here. So then, anyway, their kid is laying on their floor while they're eating dinner, and Brenda's talking about her shiatsu career. And Trevor's like, well, you like what you do, right? That's all that matters. And then he goes, there's a girl at the health club who, she doesn't do shiatsu, but man, she is gifted. And I was so annoyed that he's likening Brenda to just some girl at the health club that in his mind that he's referring to. No shade to the girl at the health club, but like Brenda is more than that. And Brenda says, actually, there's a science to shiatsu. Chinese medicine dates back over 2,000 years. And then Dawn quickly changes the subject because she can sense that Brenda's getting annoyed, which good for her.
Yeah, because honestly, what he just said was, oh, as long as you're happy. Like Brenda didn't need that validation.
No.
That was like a, what is the compliment? It's like a backhanded compliment.
And I don't think he seems like a dumbass. I don't think he even realizes that's what he's doing, but it's just an insight to his character.
No, because he thinks he's so much better.
Yeah, he does. And
until you can recognize
that in yourself, you don't see.
You can't help anybody.
Flaw. Yeah, I don't like him. But Dawn's stuck with him now, I guess. Good thing it's not Brenda.
And now I'm thinking deeply into him, just because I do see some similarities between Trevor and I in the past of me. But the comment that he made about the kid, I have things that are much more important now to think about, and like looks at his kid. That is a very valid statement. I felt it in a way that it seemed like he was downplaying everything else around him. And like Nate's experiences aren't the same because he's not a dad.
Like you can't relate to me.
You can't. You have no idea what responsibility is like until you have a child. And while there's a little bit of truth to that, in the sense of it's a different kind of responsibility. Yeah. There's like, you don't get to just decide that nobody, that was so frustrating.
Yeah, it was gross. And so anyway, Dawn changes the subject and compliments Brenda's cooking. And then she asks Nate what he does for a living. And he says he's a funeral director. And Trevor is just like, completely blown away by this. He's like, well, what?
He doesn't even know what to say.
What would ever make you decide to do that? Like, he stutters like that. It was so weird. I was like, what the fuck is your problem? But then Nate says that he was born into it, sort of like being born into the mafia. And then they all laugh.
I didn't understand that. Are any of them in the mafia?
No.
Okay.
But he's saying like he didn't choose it. But if you're born into the mafia, you don't really get to decide you're in it. You can't really leave.
You can't get out, yeah.
And they all laugh, and Brenda rolls her eyes to Nate, like at them, kind of, and they can't see, which was kind of cute for them. But then Will comes up and he's rolling his cars like on Nate's arms. And he's like, hey, not so fast, hotshot. This is a toll road. And then they kind of are laughing together, Will and Nate. And they smile at each other. And then Nate has this vision of Josh's ghost standing in the doorway, staring at him like longingly. And then he comes back to reality, and Will is screaming at the top of his lungs in Nate's face, like right in his face. And he's just like, what the fuck? And
I thought he handled it well, though.
He just literally didn't do anything.
Sometimes that's all you do. You play dead.
And then the mom drags him out, and Nate just stares at Brenda. So, yeah, that was weird.
So I put Nate, obviously, I think that he also was thinking about not being able to have kids the way that he was looking at the Will.
Yeah.
And that touched me, because if that's something that you do want and you're not able to have it, it is, I don't know that from experience, but
horrible.
Yes. But then I was like, okay, but then the scream, that might have changed his mind. A little birth control.
Yeah.
But I will say, for those of you that don't have children, that want them, it's so much different when it's your kid.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
When it's somebody else's kid screaming in your face, you do want to.
I can vouch for that.
But when it's yours, you still want to sometimes, but it just,
yeah,
it's a little different.
For sure.
And just don't.
I don't mean vouch for having my own kids, but I've dealt with hundreds of other people's kids. So
It's tough.
I loved every single one of them, but I definitely witnessed that firsthand, how it's like, obviously you love your own kid. And anyway, yeah, Nate doesn't give me.
Don't let other people's kids deter you away from not wanting kids.
Right.
And then vice versa. Don't let other people's really good, sweet kids
fool you into thinking you're going to have really good, sweet kids.
Just know it's
just
a lottery,
an open
man.
Game.
Yep.
Okay, so David and Keith arrive at Taylor's birthday, and she's super excited to see Keith. She's like, Uncle K.
Oh, so sweet.
And Keith introduces David and asks where the party's at, and Taylor just shrugs and walks inside. Then Keith and David follow her in, and Keith's looking around and realizes that his sister didn't plan a birthday party for her, and he sees junk food laying around, and Taylor's watching a show about Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know if you picked that up, but they were talking about Jeffrey Dahmer.
They did zoom in on it. I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Yeah. It was weird. And I thought that, because the first time I watched, I was like mostly just listening to it. I was like kind of glancing at it. And then I took notes and I actually watched the whole thing. But I heard the audio was like, Lionel Dahmer, blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, and then I watched and I saw they zoomed in on like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm like, okay, so little, however old she is, like 12-year-old Taylor is watching a Jeffrey Dahmer documentary, which honestly, I get it. But like, I can identify with her here because she's not being supervised, and neither was I. And she's probably going to
grow up to love
horror
thing.
Movies. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, so she offers them some of her Entenmann's cake, which is like a Little Debbie cake, and Keith gives her his gift, and it's an easy bake oven, and it's so cute, and she's so happy. And Keith asks her where her mom is, and she says that she's in the bedroom sleeping. So Keith says he's going to go talk to her, and then David sits down with Taylor, and he smiles at her.
Before you move on, I want to say, as soon as Keith walked in to see his niece and that interaction that you just described, so sweet. Yeah. I loved it. I loved Keith. Continue.
He's a very good uncle. And then Keith goes and wakes up Carla, his sister, and he's bitching at her and asking about Taylor's birthday party. And she says that she got home from work and was so tired, and she'll take her to the flea market that weekend and get her something. Then Keith starts yelling at her for not doing anything for her birthday and closes the door and asks her what she's on. And she denies being on any drugs and says that she's 7 months clean. I work 2 jobs and I take care of my kid. And then they start screaming at each other, and Keith grabs her shoulders and she threatens to file an assault charge. She's like, you do not want that. And you could see the look on his face was just like, I can't believe you just said that. And I remember that whole aspect of like assault and abuse with this family, with Keith and his sister, and their like nuclear family comes into play a lot more later.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember any of that.
Basically, their dad was extremely abusive. I don't think that's too big of a spoiler.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Keith has a lot of those same tendencies,
which is clear.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Which is why it's like Keith's one little toxicity.
And he's aware of it too. So that's actually good to know, because you could tell in that scene then she basically, what he said just like grounded him for a second. Yeah. Like, I don't want to walk across this line.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
My heart was just all over the place because Keith's niece is just so fucking sweet. She literally has no idea how neglected she is. She's so innocent. And then I was thinking, we got to get Carla some help. I wrote that out before we met her. Mm-hmm. So I was writing this as things were happening. Then I find out that she's 7 months clean. So I'm like, okay, wait, what's going on? And now I'm getting irritated with Keith. How can he think he's being helpful right now? I don't think that he is at all at that specific moment. I'm not sure how I feel about me thinking that she's neglected now, because in the beginning of those notes, I was typing out how she's so neglected. So I'm very interested in unpacking this because they just live a different life.
Yeah.
So like the neglect, I recant that statement. I don't think that she is neglected. I think it's really tough.
She's doing
There's
her
systemic
best.
Racism happening right now too. There's a lot. The systemic racism is huge. She's not going to be getting as much help as she would be if she was a white woman, especially from the government having a child. And she's a drug addict. So people are less likely to help her in that situation as well. So she's got like 2 of these things, plus being a single mom. She's working 2 jobs. Homegirl's fucking tired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I felt very conflicted about that scene. Like, I also obviously feel so bad for Taylor if she's sitting there knowing that it's
her
her
birthday
and she's sitting there alone on the couch, 12 years old, watching a Jeffrey Dahmer documentary while her mom's passed out on her birthday. But I also, yeah, I don't. Carla was like, oh, I'll take her to the flea market this weekend. It wasn't like she totally forgot. It wasn't like she was going to totally
It wasn't like she was fucked
disregard
up
it.
either.
No.
She is doing what she can.
I don't think we have enough
information
yet. You know what I mean?
From this picture, you're right. You're probably right. I still don't think that Keith reacted correctly. I don't think the yelling
I agree.
was helpful
and
one bit.
I felt that way ever since we first ever saw him do that with David in the parking lot when the guy called them faggots. Like,
oh, it's such a huge turnoff for me.
I don't.
If you raise your voice at me, I'll pee in my pants and then
I'll throw up in your face.
Yes.
Literally. But
we will
get
all of the body.
Unless there's agreed upon rules beforehand and it's for a different reason.
Yes. And there's a safe word usually involved there.
Like, talking about this, I don't know. It's so hard, but I do think, honestly, in order to and we shouldn't even be passing judgment period because it's not our life, but in order to pass any judgment, we would need more information. We would need to know the full truth. Was it really true that Carla was so tired from work that she just had to pass? Because I've been there. I've been so tired where you can't even physically keep your eyes open. And it's like, okay, you managed to get another line that she said was because Keith was like, you get her a fucking Entenmann's cake. And she's like, it's her favorite.
So sweet.
Yeah. And it's just like that
it's
also
just
stung me.
Different.
Because I'm just like, well, if it's truly her favorite, then that's way different than just like,
You know what I think also is in the back of my mind? I'm in a lot of these mom groups on social media, which are so stupid, by the way. They're beneficial every now and then, but there's so much fucking drama and there's so much, God. I'm a better mom, but like subliminally trying to say this and like I'm posting this and that and this. And that's kind of how I felt. Like, I feel like there was literally nothing wrong with the situation. There was no reason to call CPS. Absolutely no reason. Nobody was in danger.
Like with Taylor?
Yes.
Did Keith threaten to call the CPS?
I thought that was thrown out there.
It may have been. I don't remember for sure. But either way, that's the vibe he's giving. Like, you're neglecting her.
Yeah.
Which is up for
debate. And I want anybody who's listening to this right now, like if you are living in a situation very similar to Carla and Taylor, you're doing amazing. You're literally doing everything that you can and you just deserve to take a breath.
As long as your kids know you love them and you spend time with them.
Because what if Taylor was
that's
like,
all that matters. But like also she did look so sad. We just need more information.
Yeah, you're right.
We just do.
Maybe she was tired from school.
Yeah.
I don't know. Agreed. Because when we first walk in, yes, let's move on. Because my heart is too triggered right now for
sure. So David, meanwhile, Keith and Carla are bitching at each other in the bedroom. David is helping Taylor set up her easy bake oven, and he tells her that his sister used to have one, and he broke it with a 100-watt light bulb when he tried to make a pizza in it. And Taylor responds with, well, that was dumb. And that makes David laugh, and that makes Taylor laugh that David's laughing. So then they hear Keith and Carla yelling in the other room, and Taylor asks David if he lives in a house. And he's like, yeah. She's like, a big house? Not that big. You got a daddy? I used to. Then Keith comes out and tells Taylor that they have to go and he'll come back tomorrow and take her to the movies. And she's super sad, but she says okay. But this was such a sweet moment for Taylor and David to be bonding.
Yes, I was
over the yelling, and
neither of them had daddies.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh. And David doesn't seem like the type that would be really good with kids, but it
sometimes can shock you.
Yeah, he just was so sweet and loving to her and just helping her with her oven.
They were connecting for sure.
Yes. They had some type of, she could sense that he was a safe person. So
yeah, it was very sweet.
Then Nate and Brenda are talking after Trevor and the fam have already left. And Brenda brings up the health club comment that Trevor had made. And she says that she really liked the girlfriend, though. She's like, I really liked her. And Nate called the kid a freak, and they're laughing. And he suggests that they need some friends, like couples that we don't hate. And Brenda says, oh, we have each other, but actually maybe we should volunteer someplace, do something good for the world, give more, consume less, like the needle exchange program or Habitat for Humanity or something. And while she's going on about volunteering, Nate is imagining that he tells Brenda about his AVM and that he's dying and he's so scared. And then she like flicks him in the head. And we realize that he never actually said any of that. He was just imagining he was saying it.
Quit with the fake outs and just fucking tell her. Bro is what I put.
He needs to say something. But then Brenda goes on to say that she hates her life. She resents Trevor and Dawn and how they have something that she will never have. They're so complete. And maybe she really is borderline. And Nate's like, what the hell is going on with you? And she says that she has no idea who she is, which I feel like I know what you were just about to say, but like that is not true. They have their own issues. Trevor's a douchebag, first of all. They're not complete. There's no way Dawn is actually happy with him. Everybody has their own issues that we don't see, and I guarantee you that they do. But Brenda's just being so hard on herself. But I honestly, she had that line where she says, I spent all this time when I was a kid, I was analyzed by everybody. Then I spent the rest of my life taking care of Billy, and now I have no idea who the fuck I am. And I feel that so much, like that feeling, because I didn't have that same situation. I wasn't a super high IQ that got analyzed as a child, but I had my own weird childhood. And then I spent my whole adult life basically being one thing. Like I was a teacher, and then now I'm not. And then it's like, I just never really fully realized think about how much time you spend at work. If you work a full-time job, you probably work, like the standard is 40 hours a week. Like that's so much of your life. And that's then is even, especially being a teacher, like I spent so much of my life and all my time outside of work. I mean, 50% of that time was dedicated to shit that I was doing for my job. So I was like my whole identity, even though it wasn't really what I wanted to be my whole identity, it turned into that. Yeah. And then now it feels like I'm happy that I'm able to have time to myself now. But there is something like this whole thing Brenda's going through right now, looking around at people, all these people around her who have families and kids. And it's like, even though I know she knows deep down that everyone she's comparing herself to is not actually as happy as she's telling herself they are, it's still such a hard thing to be at that stage where you're realizing that you never had the time to yourself to figure out who you really are. Like I feel that, and I feel like I'm going through that right now, and I'm probably not as dramatically as that, but it's
true, because you're not putting it on a one season show in an episode
and I don't
explain.
have a psychotic brother who tried to slice my tattoo off or anything. Like those are, you know what I mean? It's nothing that extreme, but the feeling. But
that's more magnified. Yeah. So like what you're feeling is probably the exact same. We're just seeing it in a more magnified version.
Like a dramatized way.
Yeah, there's probably a word for it. If we had a higher IQ, I bet we'd know.
Anyway, she's like, oh, I'm going to make some tea. So that was just interesting to think about. So then Nate, David, and Ruth are admiring the casket wall, and Ruth asks what they spent on it. And Nate tells her it was $20,000. And she's like, how much is left in the reserve fund that I gave you? And Nate says that he'll have to check. And
they know.
Yeah, he for sure knew. And it's not a lot, because they said earlier there's not a lot left. And she says, I want a full accounting of how you spent that $93,000. I am an investor in Fisher & Sons, and that wall is part of my investment, and I expect a return. And David's like, of course, Mom. And she interrupts him and says, I am speaking fiercely from the eye. Do you mind? And storms off. And David and Nate just look at each other like, what the fuck did she just
I think
say?
They even had cracked a smile.
Yeah.
They were like,
because
I wonder if it was an organic smile too.
Yeah, probably. They probably were genuinely like.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Ruth. Yeah. They don't know anything about the plan. They're like, the fucking eye? What do you, I'm trying not to show my crotch.
That's okay.
The eye.
And
doesn't she go like this?
You know what's interesting? Okay,
what?
When I was watching, I had the subtitles on, and when they say it, I'm speaking fiercely from the eye, it's written as I, like the letter I. But you wrote EYE, and that's how I heard it the first time. So is it like from the I, or is it from the I? I don't know. Both would make sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's the I, like me. I'm
Yes.
fiercely from the I, like capital I. Anyway, so the guy who was like in charge of the casket wall scenario comes up and has them sign the contract. And Nate's like, do we need to write you a check now or can we send it in the mail? And he hands them an envelope and says, you might want to open this first. And the envelope is a note from Mitzi. And it says, enjoy the new casket wall. It's on me. Kisses, Mitzi Dalton Huntley. And the guy explains that their Applebee caskets or whatever are actually owned by Kroner International now. And then they're like, since when? He's like, about 3 weeks ago. And this guy just thinks that they don't know the beef between them. They just think that Mitzi was like
Doing them a solid.
And so he's being like, you're so lucky you don't need to even pay for this. Look at you. But then he walks out and they're like, so now they have us selling Kroner caskets, which is so, I hate that, but so clever on Mitzi's part.
But I'm curious, is that even like a bad thing? Like, tell me more about this scenario.
She basically was doing it to...
Is it a slap in the face or is it...
Well, I mean, it's not going to do them in, but it's still, they're like arch nemesises at this point, and they're contributing to their income now by selling their caskets.
Okay, so they're back basically giving them more ammo and money to buy ammo to take them down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Which it's just like a slap in the face, like, you idiots, look at what I can do. She's just fucking with them.
Yeah.
But then Nate and David get into a little tiff, and Nate says that, oh, now we can help Rico. And David's like, no, actually, we didn't save $20,000. We
just didn't spend it.
Yeah, we just didn't spend it. And now we're out. We're actually out however much money that you lost from the casket situation with the Titan and stuff. So,
which is... take the girl math. I like Nate's math better.
The girl, that's so true. That was girl math he was doing.
David was doing some whack ass, logical, fucking.
He's being realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
they saved 20 grand.
That's how I would take it.
Yeah.
So then we see Vanessa down in the prep room talking to Rico, and Rico's telling her, yeah, I really love the house, but they're never going to give us the money. And she says that she got the money and she called the realtor and they got the house. And Rico's like, what? What are you talking about? Where'd you get the money?
How much was it again? Did they need?
They needed $11,000. Rico asked the Fishers for $11,000.
That's like nothing.
For them, yeah, probably at this point. If you're looking at it, they spent $20,000 on the casket wall that they really didn't need.
Mm-hmm. They could have given it to Ruth.
Mm-hmm. But also...
it's not our money to spend. Not fair. True.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, we'll shut up.
So then Rico puts the pieces together that Vanessa got this money from Angelica, which we found out last episode is already an issue, that he found out that she's been giving Vanessa money. So Vanessa tells him that I loved how, he immediately, as soon as he connects in his head that she got the money from Angelica, he starts freaking out and he's like, she doesn't provide for this family, I do, blah, blah, blah. And I was expecting Vanessa not expecting her, but my just natural, I don't know, I kind of expected her to cower a little or something, but she just immediately explodes right back at him. She's like, I don't want to hear any more of this machismo bullshit from you.
Machismo, I love that.
Yes. And good for her. But Rico says that he's going to cancel that check, and he goes to pick up the phone, but she stops him and she points out all the different times that he has supported their family over the last couple of months. Brilliant. She's a smart woman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Like, who paid for my root canal or whatever the fuck she said, and who did this and who did that, which it was Rico.
But hold on a second.
Gotta stroke his ego.
Yes. That fragile masculine ego has to be stroked. Did she spit on it too while she was at it? Yeah. Did she give it the hack to a...
Isn't it sad? That's literally all you have to fucking do. Like, with so many scenarios in your life, if there's a man involved who's in control, you stroke the ego, and it's that fucking easy, but it makes me so angry that is the source. That is what our world is controlled by, is a fragile male ego.
Uh-huh.
God fucking damn it.
Oh my God.
Anyway, that's what happened. And
she's playing the game.
She is. Vanessa's a boss. So then Claire walks up to Gabe at school and asks how Andy is. And he says he's going to be okay. And she asks, well, what was he on? some weird shit. I don't really know. And she goes, because I heard he smoked a joint dipped in embalming fluid. And Gabe starts to say that he wouldn't know. And Claire interrupts him and says, that wouldn't be embalming fluid you stole from my house, right? And she pushes him and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you know how much trouble this could get us in? He could have died and my brothers could be getting a phone call from the cops. How could you bring this on my family? And Gabe says that he interrupts her and he's like, would you stop? I gave Andy 5 fry sticks to sell and he fucking smoked them all. Of course, Andy, that just, God, he's the worst. But anyway, I'm sorry that I fucked with you, but you took me down there and I saw this stuff and I just wasn't thinking. And
so it's not his fault, is what I'm hearing.
I hate him in this. But she's like, oh, you were thinking about yourself. Then Gabe tells Claire, listen to me. Like, she starts to walk away and he goes and runs after her and he's like, wait, Claire, listen to me. The cops have a video of us robbing a convenience store and now I'm worried that Andy is going to turn me in. And he's all worried and stressed and he's like basically looking for consolation from Claire.
Yeah.
And Claire looks at him and says, who the fuck are you? And then Gabe falls to his knees and he's like, oh, fuck, everything I touch turns to shit. Everything is shit. And he's like hitting himself in the head. And Claire's just looking at him, kind of pitying him. And she's like, everyone was right about you. And he says, you're the only good thing that I have left. Please don't give up on me. And Claire shakes her head and says no and walks away, which good for her. But Gabe was so awful here. Like
the deflection, if I say trigger one more time, you guys, I'm going to be triggered. But it was very triggering.
Yeah, he's like acting like a narcissist. I don't know if I feel like he actually is one, but he's acting
something's
like one.
going on. It reminded me, do you remember the time that my ex-boyfriend cheated on me and then I found out about it and then I brought it up to him, the bald one, and he somehow turned it back on me that I should feel sorry for him because now the woman was claiming rape, whom I actually 15 years later believe her. Mm-hmm. But I didn't at the time because I was 15, 16, 17, I don't even know. But it was the same thing. So then when I was watching that, I was hearing Claire trying to hold Gabe accountable for an action that Gabe did, a choice that he made and followed through on. And Gabe, it's not my fault. And look at me. Now they have the convenience.
Look at the consequences of my own actions.
Yes, that's way better.
Feel bad for me, please. What the fuck?
I was irate. It is unacceptable behavior.
And it's the same fucking thing as the first, whatever episode it was, when he, with the foot and everything. Like,
tell us again. I forgot. Oh, when he said the shit about
he told everyone about Claire
the toe
sucking
sucking
his toe, and then he was all
but woe is
deflecting.
me.
Yeah, like, oh, how can you be mad at me for this? I'm so sorry, whatever. But it's like,
it's a manipulative.
Yeah, you have to own up to the consequences of your own fucking actions. It's just so fucked. He's so annoying. He's just a fucking typical
piece of shit.
Yeah. Okay, so Nate is getting ready to go running, and then he hears the ghost of Josh crying behind him, and he turns around and says, oh, Christ, you're really starting to piss me off. What the fuck do you want from me? And then the ghost is saying, I want you to see me. Look at me. And I have to say, this actor plays a really good blubbery crying person. Like, it was like annoying almost, kind of. He was just like, the whole time. But anyway.
His face was all wet.
Yes. And then he's like, I want you to see me. Look at me. And then he all of a sudden is like standing right in front of Nate as he's tying his running shoes and forces Nate.
Tying his running shoes to go running?
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be doing that.
No, he's not supposed to be. Yeah, you're right. But he actually doesn't end up going.
Correct.
Because of Josh, probably. He looks at him and he's like, see me.
You need to face
look at
me.
me. And then there's a long moment of silence where Nate's just literally looking at him like, oh my God. And you're right, that probably is part of that, like why he's connecting in his head, like, oh my God, I'm being an idiot. I need to take this seriously. I need to face the music. And the music is sitting right in front of me because this is going to be me if I don't start taking this seriously.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love processing through all of this.
I know, it's so fun.
So interesting. So then David is down admiring the casket wall again, and Nate walks in, and apparently he didn't go for his run. So we just talked through that, but Nate tells David that he needs to tell him something. And David goes, what have you done now? And Nate says, I think we should sit down. And they go to sit down, and he's like, listen, if I've been a dick or something, I'm really sorry. But,
Starts crying.
yeah, I found out that I have a condition called AVM, which basically means I could have a stroke or aneurysm at just about any time. And then, yeah, he started really bawling as he continued on. He's like, I don't know. I'm not coping with this very well. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Oh, fuck. And he's just bawling by the end of it. And David reaches over and he grabs his hand, and the camera's like pulling back. So it was very emotional, but you could tell this was not a fake out scene. Nate was definitely 100% telling David about his diagnosis. It was so sad, and also a really key bonding moment for them, I feel. That was probably one of the deepest moments they've ever had together outside of Nathaniel's funeral and stuff.
Right. I think that it was also kind of fun for us to watch all of these episodes since he found out, like, who is he going to tell?
Yeah.
Who's this going to be? And it turns out to be David.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I put myself in my shoes with Callie or whatever. And I probably would have told Rob first. But I guess he's not married to Brenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just was interesting that he
chose
David. I was wondering what you thought, though. Yeah.
I guess I didn't really fully process through that aspect of it, like the reasoning why he chose David. But I don't know, when you think about their dynamic and their situation and like their recent history over the last 6 months since Nathaniel had died, I bet if this would have happened when Nate was still living in Seattle,
He'd have called the girl that
he
takes
wouldn't.
pictures of food.
David would definitely not have been the first person, but I think it's just their circumstances, and he's feeling really close to David right now, and that fluctuates throughout your life. And there's probably been times in your life where you feel like Rob would have been the first one you told, but then there's probably times where you maybe would have felt
Called
like
Callie or something.
Yeah. I don't know. But I did love that. I loved that for them. I also would have loved it for Nate and Brenda, but I think this seemed
right.
It did. That's a good way to put it. It did seem right.
And until it actually happened, it felt to me like he should have talked to Brenda about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird
he should have talked to everyone about it by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of
Can you imagine that many business days going without telling somebody? I would have probably texted you in the hospital. Oh my God, check out this picture.
Yeah.
Do you see this? That's my AVM.
You just made me think of, though, I forgot to mention at the beginning when we were talking about everything going crazy. Did I say how someone broke into my car?
No,
I don't think I
forgot about
part.
that. No,
so did I until you just said that, and I texted you right away.
On her way over here today.
Yeah.
So that was the also
first
additional
thing that tipped me off to shit being off right now. But yeah, and I texted you right away, but that obviously is not as big of a deal as
her text said, on my way, somebody broke into my car, LOL. In the same, it was like 8:17 p.m. and then 8:17 p.m. I don't even remember what I said. What the fuck? Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So that's
the end of that episode.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode.
But we have our MVPs and our Mate Day Cremate.
And I want to change number 3 to Trevor. So Carla, Dawn, and Trevor for Mate Day Cremate. But who's your MVP for this one?
MVP.
Nate for coming out about his AVM.
Yeah, but hold on. Let's think for a second.
I can't. Or maybe...
Is there any debate? Anybody else to debate?
I was like kind of thinking through the Robbie and Ruth thing, but neither one was like...
I'm not impacted that much by it.
Yeah. I honestly, I would say Nate. Or like maybe Claire for walking away from Gabe, but...
I thought that in the back of my head too, but...
She's been our MVP a lot.
Yeah.
For better
I would think you're right. I would do Nate.
And he really kind of has been stepping up too. And he was there for Brenda with the whole Trevor thing. And he was a good sport about it.
I like that. Yep. And he didn't punch the kid in the face for screaming at him.
He was a good sport with the kid. He supported Brenda through the whole weird Trevor thing. He told David about his AVM. This could be viewed good or bad, but he was the one who manned up and told Rico they weren't going to give him the money. And typically that would have been left to David.
Mm-hmm.
But
I also did, that crossed my mind too. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, of course it has to be Nate.
All right, we'll give it to Nate for this episode. And then Mate Day Cremate, we have Carla, Keith's sister, Dawn, Trevor's wife, and Trevor, Brenda's ex.
I think I would, I'm going to cremate Trevor.
That's the obvious choice.
I think I'm going to mate Carla and date Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Definitely get along with Dawn the best, probably. She seems very similar-minded to us.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind dating Carla either, though. Like, I feel like I would make I would make a good teammate with her.
With what we know right now, I think that's the best answer. But for the sake of coming up with a different one, I'll say, well, I don't really want to cremate Carla. But no, okay, I can't do anything besides cremate Trevor.
Yeah,
Trevor
you
has
can't
to be
get
cremated.
We have to feel good about it.
Okay, that can be both of our answers for this one, and it's also we're at 2 hours, so
Woo! But we have to blind rank.
Thank you for remembering.
So we put episode 1.
I forgot to put that in the notes to remind us what we put it at.
I think it was 5.
So do I. Yeah.
And there's
like
13.
This one better or worse? I liked the other one better.
I liked this one better.
Really? I liked this. So in terms of like fun scenes to watch, the ecstasy trip from last episode and the life and death scene while he was tripping, I really liked those in the last episode. They were just really creative. I did really like this one too, though, but...
So we could put it as a 6, or do you think we should maybe put it as a 7, so then we can have that?
But you said you liked this one better, so why did you like this one better?
It felt more, I think I liked it because I could relate to a lot of things more.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. I definitely really related to Brenda in this one.
I unpacked emotionally a lot of like my own issues watching this one, more so than I did with the first one.
Yeah. Should we just put this at a 6 or 7? I'd be fine with either.
Let's do a 6.
Okay. We'll see what the next one is. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars, follow us, share us with your friends, leave a comment,
message us, follow us on my regular socials.
Yeah.
Courtney here in Climax with Courtney.
Let us know your thoughts as you're watching all of the different scenes in the episode.
And if we missed anything too that you think that we should have maybe delved deeper on, put it in the comments because we can always come back and do little bonus features and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love talking about what you guys say in the comments.
Yeah, we read all 3 comments. We read them. I actually read them several times a day.
I love them.
I don't actually do that, but but I do love them so much.
When we get them, yeah. And anyway, yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll see you next
week for season 2, episode 3.
Bye.
Bye. Stay safe. It's weird out there, apparently.